Movie theaters have reopened in New York City and are open or reopening elsewhere. Expect to spread out, and unless you're consuming the overpriced refreshments, expect to mask up. But after that new James Bond movie has sat on the shelf for over a year, we're finally going to get to see Daniel Craig, now 53, in his final performance as 007. And 35 years after Top Gun, Tom Cruise returns as Maverick.
You should be at least a 2-star admiral by now. Yet here you are, Captain. Why is that?
It's one of life's mysteries, sir.
These cinema stars are like veteran baseball players now struggling through spring training, trying to squeeze in one more season. But another movie sequel is an homage to Harold Ramis, who co-wrote National Lampoon's Animal House. He was Bill Murray's Army buddy in Stripes, which he also co-wrote, and he directed hits including Caddyshack, Groundhog Day, and Analyze This. But you know his face best as Egon in Ghostbusters. He left us too soon, but is remembered in another sequel we can't wait to see.
Somehow, a town that isn't anywhere near a tectonic plate, that has no fault lines, no fracking, no loud music even, is shaking on a daily basis.
Under the dining table now!
My grandfather died. My mom says we're just here to pick through the rubble of his life.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
Come on, darling.
It has a gunner seat?
Coming up, Bitcoin, fool's gold. This is the big picture on RT America. I chuckled when I spotted this at the supermarket. That vending machine that you dump spare change into to swap for paper money or Amazon credit is now selling Bitcoin. Let me tell you my Bitcoin sob story. For several decades, I've been writing a monthly newsletter to my colleagues in the talk radio industry, and there's no charge. It's free. If you want to subscribe, you can go to my website, hollandcook.com. But for the first 25 years, I was selling subscriptions. It was $99 a month. And about a half dozen years ago, one of my subscribers asked, could he renew by paying in Bitcoin? I said, what's Bitcoin? Can you imagine how much that $99 worth of Bitcoin would be worth today? But now, is it too late to get into Bitcoin, or is this fool's gold? It's debatable.
It's getting close now, about 50% or so, overtaking silver. So the global silver market's approximately just under $2 trillion. So certainly within a few months, Bitcoin will be vaulting over silver. It's on its way, in my belief, in 2021 to get halfway or so against the market capitalization of gold. That is, it would be $4 trillion, on its way to $10 trillion. And then, you know, once it gets past gold, there's only the dollar is left. And the thing about Bitcoin is that it is the apex predator. It is the shark in an ocean full of goldfish or plankton, and which is the US dollar. They print a lot of dollars, but they're not particularly robust.
It has value to the extent that people believe it has value. A Bitcoin is just a word, right, for something that has no intrinsic value. It is worth what people think it is worth. That can be 51,000 as opposed to less than 10,000 a year ago. And of course, 0.8 of a cent when it first was issued, or it could be nothing.
Nothing. Let's get a third opinion from RT Boom Bust co-host Christy I. Christy, in layman's terms, how does cryptocurrency work?
Well, cryptocurrency at its very pure and simplest form is a peer-to-peer form of payment that can be exchanged online for goods and services. And this uses a technology called blockchain, which is a decentralized technology spread across many computers that manages and records these transactions in an immutable ledger. So it's because of its security and permanence, digital permanence, that the ledger is documented and copied across all these computers. And that's a big part of this technology's appeal. This means that no one person, no one entity, organization owns the blockchain and can have control over it. And that's really the big difference between cryptocurrencies and other peer-to-peer forms of payment, things like PayPal or Venmo. Yes, they kind of do the same thing. They do payments in exchange for goods and services. But the big difference is that PayPal and Venmo and Square and all of these other forms of payments, they're centralized entities, and they dictate limits of who you can or cannot pay, how much you can or cannot withdraw in one day. Basically, like big banks, these institutions control how you spend your money, whether you like it or not. And that is the main allure of cryptocurrencies, financial freedom, to be able to truly control your own money and own it. Because your money deposited at the bank is actually not yours, not really. Because if you wanted to make a withdrawal of, say, a couple tens of thousands, that would require a lot of paperwork, hours at the bank to sign off, not to mention fees, deposit fees, withdrawal fees, wire fees, etc. And that's when the market climate is actually sane, like right now. During periods of heightened fear in the markets, when there's a run on the banks, when we had that financial crisis, when everyone is clamoring to make withdrawals, forget about it. You won't be able to get anything out or move anything. And that's what I mean by you don't really control your own money, not when times matter. Because when things get tough, banks are the first to clamp down, and that leads to a very dangerous situation. And Bitcoin, that was actually born out of the last financial crisis as a way for the ordinary person to basically take back control of his finances.
So about that Coinstar vending machine I see at the supermarket, instructions are insert U.S. paper money into the cash acceptor and receive voucher with a Bitcoin redemption code and create a cryptocurrency wallet. Christy, based on that and what you have just explained to us, is cryptocurrency effectively a debit card? And if it is, aren't we better off with a debit card, which won't fluctuate?
It's actually very different than a debit card. I would say Bitcoin is more so a reserve currency. Yes, you're absolutely right. If we are talking about debit cards and things, you want a stable currency for that. Because Bitcoin, it does swing wildly, but that's not exactly a bad thing. I think most Bitcoin holders, they actually appreciate the wild swings and volatility, as because of that, it appreciated over 900% in 2021 already. So to your point, yes, price stability is a necessity when you're using it as a currency. So yes, when you want to use like a debit card to purchase items, you want a stable currency for that. You also want a currency with a high throughput speed and settlement times that won't clog or congest networks and have high fees. And that's why when we talk about cryptocurrencies, there are thousands of cryptocurrencies in development, not just Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin, that was never really intended to be used for mass market adoption for transaction. Its throughput speed lags that of Visa and MasterCard. It can basically only do about 4.6 transactions per second versus Visa that can do almost over 1,700. So there are other coins that are more suitable and scalable for processing these types of transactions. Coins that are geared more towards enterprise and frictionless onboarding and adoption. Bitcoin, as a use case scenario, is more of a reserve asset that all of the other altcoins trade against.
Interesting aspect you've raised there. We're talking cryptocurrency with RT Boom Bust co-host Christy I. And Bitcoin gets a lot of ink and airtime because it's in the news, because of the fluctuation. It's pretty much become the Kleenex, the Scotch tape, the generic term for crypto. What are some of the others, and do they work similarly or differently than Bitcoin?
Yeah, cryptocurrency is basically the umbrella term for the space, and Bitcoin is the name that people actually know the most. But just like the equities market, the entire crypto ecosystem is divided into many different categories. We have things like privacy and security coins that include things like Dash, Monero, Zcash, and they specialize in obscuring the identity of the sender and the recipient for privacy reasons. Then we have another big category, the exchange coins. These are coins issued by exchanges that allow you to trade and pay the trading fees with these tokens. And this has been a really hot space ever since trading volume exploded late 2020 and includes things like BNB for Binance, KuCoin, FTT for the derivatives exchange, where volumes are now absolutely exploding. Derivatives and futures are gaining a lot of attention right now as these gives traders more leverage to trade with. And then you have stable coins, what we talked about, coins that are backed to or pegged to a global fiat currency. And these are coins that traders flee to in times of market volatility and includes things like USDC, Tether, Maker's DAI, Frax, etc. And then you have one of the biggest spaces, which is DeFi space or decentralized finance. And this includes all of the application like decentralized exchanges, DEXs, decentralized lending platforms, prediction markets, yield farming, liquidity mining, etc. And in this space, you also have so many tokens, but just to name a few, you have Uni, Compound, Aave. And this is a rapidly growing space that primarily contributed to the crypto boom we saw last year built on ETH. So then you have the newest space that is also rapidly gaining popularity, which we talked about last week on Boom Bust, the NFT, which stands for non-fungible tokens. And these NFTs encompass everything from artwork to digital fashion items to virtual real estate. And these tokens give ownership to digital property, and they're all characterized by their unique qualities and authenticity. And they're basically collector's items and cannot be duplicated. So you have that infamous 6-second clip of Trump being sold for $6.6 million recently. And also the first tweet ever is being auctioned off as well.
Yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on this because it is so new. And the fact that these NFTs are available for free somewhere else is curious. But back to Bitcoin, it was just several years ago that our dear departed chum, Bart Chilton, was aghast when Bitcoin topped 20,000, and a year later it was 3,000 and change. Lately it's topped 50K. Christy, for the average investor in the middle class, is this too scary to be part of an IRA portfolio?
Well, I believe it carries the same risk as any alternative investment. It carries the same risk as even equities because, yes, on a day-to-day basis, the crypto space is much more volatile than equities. But volatility has been steadily declining as the technology matures. And it would actually round out an investment portfolio as an alternative asset given its low correlation to traditional assets such as stocks, bonds, and even gold. Because while it has the same return profile of a high beta equity name, it's more so correlated to gold as a safety asset. And also, if we just take out the psychological portion of what you just said and evaluate based on simple returns from a percentage basis point, Bitcoin should be your star investment. There's absolutely no other asset that has performed as well in the same period of time from 3,000 to over 50,000. That's over a 16x return. So logically, if we evaluate performance in assets based on ROI, then Bitcoin should absolutely be part of your IRA portfolio. But of course, it's not as simple decision as that. The path was a long and arduous one, but it means that if you bought Bitcoin at any point in time since its existence and just held it, you're basically in the money. And that's the point of an IRA account, right? To not lose your money and earn more than inflation. So if that's the goal and benchmark, then Bitcoin's a great addition.
Yeah, now I really wish I took that $99. Christy I from Boom Bust. I want to catch up with you in a few weeks to see how this NFT is doing. But thank you again for your time in the big picture. NASA's mission statement for the Mars exploration program is to explore Mars and to provide a continuous flow of scientific information and discovery through a carefully selected series of robotic orbiters, landers, and mobile laboratories interconnected by a high-bandwidth Mars-Earth communications network. As the Perseverance rover landed on Mars a couple of weeks ago, we had veteran space journalist John Bisney on to debrief us, and you can see that episode of The Big Picture at youtube.com/thebigpictureRT. The images and video Perseverance is sending back are stunning. And now, for the first time, we can hear Mars. Turn up your volume because the Martian atmosphere is so thin that what you're about to hear will be faint. But listen to the wind. You can see and hear the planet Mars at nasa.gov, and that is the big picture. I'm Holland Cook, back with another show, same time next week. Meantime, if you want to set your DVR, DirecTV channel 321, dish 280. RT America is streaming live at youtube.com/RT America. Our shows are at youtube.com/TheBigPictureRT, and all of the above is in your pocket or purse or any device with our portable TV app at portable.tv or in the App Store or Google Play. Beware the Ides of March. Happy St. Patty's Day. And question more.